have opted to be bringing for this global finals. So we see on Ben's side, there is a lot of Trick Room elements here. We got that Torkoal, we have that Duskops, as well as Pokemon to really utilize the Trick Room. We have the Glacier, we have the Hatterene, but as well, that Venusaur to kind of pair up with the Torkoal Sun, which I really like.
A whole lot of Trick Room and a whole lot of powerful pairings there from Ben. Moving on over to Leonardo's side, though, kind of falling a little bit more in line with what we saw a lot from Europe in those region finals. This Registeel paired with a Lander is something I think we're going to be seeing a lot of over the course of this weekend, tapping into the Galarian Moltres and rounding it out nicely with this Regieleki, Grimmsnarl, and Spectrier. So definitely some choices there that can change the game very, very quickly. I think he's going to have to be very, very conscious of the Trick Room coming out from Ben and just be able to play around it. I think Registeel should be able to sit there and do a lot of work, though. Just has to be conscious of his positioning at all times, and leads could be really, really important in this game.
100%. Something I really appreciate on both teams as well is each one has a horse to their side. We see that Glacier versus that Spectre. So I'm excited to see if either of those are utilized in this matchup, and if so, how. But that being said, the best way to be finding that out is to be hopping into the match. So let's get into it, because I know I'm excited to see how things are going to be shaking up, starting with the global finals. So to start right off of the bat, that horse we were talking about, that Spectre, paired with that Moltres, and it's going to be facing down against a classic Trick Room lead here, that Indeedee with that Hatterene.
The Hatterene Indeedee was something a lot of people were experimenting with, I think, as soon as we started playing in the Sword and Shield formats. So seeing a trainer fall back to it, feel really, really good about it, must have a good few games, I'd say, of experience under his belt. But Leonardo, a very aggressive lead. There's certainly options on the Spectrier. We've seen it played a few different ways over a few different kind of formats now since its release. So trainers really able to tap in and use it both offensively and rather supportively as well. So looking at how Leonardo decides to play this one could have a huge impact, particularly on the early turns of this game.
Yeah, we've seen in the past just how impactful Trick Room can be if unable to be stopped or unable to be weathered through. So Ben being able to get up a place up early here with that Trick Room would definitely be an advantage. Right off the bat, though, the Spectre going to go for a Snarl, so definitely a way to be punishing these two Pokemon. Being able to drop that special attack right off of the bat is definitely very impactful here. Moltres just looking to fire off a Fiery Wrath as well to be dealing even more damage, bringing both of these Pokemon down real low. Critical hit on that Hatterene here. Deedee, its own Expanding Force. Of course, Moltres is not going to do anything to that, being a Dark type, but is going to get a little bit of chip on that Spectre. And of course, that Hatterene does get the Trick Room up, but both of these Pokemon out on the field are definitely hurting, and with the special attack drop to boost is a little difficult.
It's a kind of a tale of all of the spread moves possible. The Snarl, the Fiery Wrath, the Expanding Force, but a lot more damage coming down from Leonardo's side, making sure that he puts a lot of pressure on both the Hatterene and the Indeedee. The Hatterene, of course, hasn't decided to Gigantamax yet, and that's something a lot of trainers do after the Trick Room is set up. So now that that's in play, the Hatterene may be able to start doing a whole lot more. That's a trade that Ben has to be confident in making, though. Can I afford to let these two Pokemon take a lot of damage in exchange for the Trick Room? It's not really a secret that he's going for it, and I like that Leonardo just starts applying the pressure and weaving in that very impactful Snarl too. Did respect the potential Follow Me from Indeedee, holding back on that taunt from Spectrier, which does have his open team sheet and something Ben knew about, so just bluffing the Follow Me and getting something down with the Expanding Force could be helpful throughout the course of this game. But now that the Trick Room's set up, it's time for Indeedee to do its thing. Hatterene, my apologies, to do its thing. Indeedee does get to do its thing too.
Indeedee's very good at helping Hatterene do its thing here, and it's going to allow Hatterene to try and do more, as it is going to go for the Follow Me this time around, as Leonardo just opts to be protecting that Moltres. G-Max might going to be coming out, though, not into the Moltres, but instead looking to be cleaning up that Spectre, and critical hit to boot is going to be able to pick that up as well, leaving that Moltres confused.
The Moltres tried to stay safe during that whole turn and ended up getting confused for its troubles, so a really good turn from Ben, being able to kind of execute that turn one, get your Trick Room set up, and then immediately go on the offense. Very, very good for a Trick Room team like Ben's, And the targeting is perfect from him too. Throwing the smite, or the G-Max smite, into the Spectrier, getting a knockout there on the same turn that the Moltres just protected. Of course, the Moltres isn't going to appreciate that attack in the slightest. Being able to call that, very, very good play from Ben, and just making sure your targeting is spot on. You only have limited turns in the Trick Room. You can't be wasting those throwing attacks into protect or just not hitting at all. So really good play there from Ben to kind of balance things out after a turn one where he took a whole lot of damage. Looks like Leonardo's really thinking about the switch in here.
Of course, we will see that Landorus coming out. I mean, Landorus was a Pokemon we saw frequently in regions, and Globals is going to probably be a very similar thing. It's such a strong Pokemon, and I mean, it's a little bit of at least an okay situation for Leonardo here, and the fact that the Hatterene is so close to being KO'd. It's sitting there with like a third of its HP left as well. It is at a -1. It is a Life Orb, so it is doing more damage, but we did see that it picked up the critical hit last time, so it'll be interesting to see how much damage it's able to apply onto Leonardo.
I'd like to look at it do damage without the critical hit, just to take a look at how that one plays out. Leonardo has a choice that he has to make as well. He does have to start looking for a Dynamax option here. Of course, Ben's already committed to his with the Gigantamax Hatterene, and I think the onus is now on Leonardo to try and find that bit of wiggle room to get a very impactful Dynamax in. It's not going to be the Moltres, though. Might be the ever-common Landorus, due to the fact Registeel wants to set up, and there it is. Confirmation as soon as the Registeel switches in that we are getting a Dynamax Landorus. You're going to see a lot of this over the course of the weekend, and it's something just to get used to and really learn exactly how much it can do. It's been a problem for years, not just in these tournaments. It's a Pokemon that regularly crops up, and now taking advantage of Dynamax, it's become even better.
Indeedy, though, just trying to make sure that this Hatterene can output as much possible. Going to go for that max Mindstorm into the Landorus. So really good amount of damage with that Helping Hand combined with that Life Orb. But Landorus going to take the opportunity to fire back a Max Quake. This is so nice. Not only going to be picking up the KO on this Hatterene, but as well getting a nice special defense boost, not only on itself, but that Registeel that swapped in as well.
The special defense boost, very impactful here. Looking across Ben's team as we did before the game, there is a lot of special attackers there, and if you're going to be trying to take hits, that's exactly how you want to do it. Now we actually get to look in Ben's menu, because we are viewing it from his side, and it's going to be even harder to take these Pokemon out with the special defense boost. Of course, Torkoal is going to hit the Registeel super effectively, but getting a special defense boost never hurts to go with it if you're trying to kind of take that one out. The attacking options are going to be looking a little limited for Ben. He's very committed to not only setting up this Trick Room, but keeping it set up with the Dusclops. And the Dusclops really limited in its attacking options, so now it's time for Torkoal to come and play, and if it can't find those knockouts, or if Leonardo's just able to kind of work around them a little bit better, then this game could turn a little bit nastily for Ben. I do like, though, that the Torkoal comes in, gets control of the Sun, and still is playing in Trick Room, with Indeedee as a little bit of support, too.
100%. And I mean, the amount of damage that the Hatterene is able to do to Landorus before being taken out is definitely nice. Of course, Torkoal never really appreciates going up against the Landorus, but in this case, especially still being able to have the Trick Room, is in a situation where this Torkoal can try and pick it off. But Ben was possibly the most aggressive Trick Room core that I've seen in a while. That having the Dusclops and the Torkoal in the back, that's such a strong combination there.
Very committed to this Trick Room strategy, and looking at his team and the 6 that he brought to this tournament, kind of has to be in this one, which could be a little bit telegraphed at some team previews, but if you play it right, you execute it perfectly, you'll be in a great position. And this Torkoal may just be on a mission. We saw the item, obviously Leonardo knows about it, that it is going to be carrying the choice specs as well. So once it commits to a move, it's in a really good position to do as much damage as possible, with Indeedee helping out as well. It's going to be doing even better.
It committed to that big attack, but unfortunately hitting into a max guard as well as a protect. Leonardo not wanting to take that damage and potentially looking to try and wait out this Trick Room. I mean, this Torkoal especially, we've seen the item on it. We know it's going to be hitting for massive amounts of damage, and Leonardo having to do what he can to be waiting it out, to be getting in a favorable position where he gets to be moving first.
even with a special defense boost, Landorus is not going to be taking that eruption. I'm not so
Oh,
sure
no.
the Registeel is going to be enjoying it either. Maybe if it got the Max Quake and like an Amnesia set up, then maybe I'd feel a little better for the Registeel. But at the current moment, with the sun up as well, the Choice Specs, the helping hand, that is just an insane amount of damage being thrown from those eruptions. So Ben looking to capitalize on this Trick Room, but not right now, maybe saving that for a little bit later. A little bit uncomfortable about his lock-in after that first turn, thinking Leonardo has an option with the switch.
First of the Dusclops coming out, Indeedee just looking to protect, realizing how important the Trick Room is and wanting to be utilizing it. Maybe worried about exactly what we're seeing here, that double max guard, double protect. Leonardo fails both of those though, so Ben not wanting to risk Leonardo hitting either of those, but unfortunately that would have been something to capitalize off of if willing to take a risk, but opting to play it safe instead to try and reset the Trick Room.
The Torkoal leaving there definitely slows things down, but I respect Ben's kind of commitment to having the Trick Room up and making sure that Torkoal can sweep towards the end of the game, targeting into the Landorus when it's not Dynamaxed as well, if it needs to mix up its moves a little bit. Very much Ben looking a couple turns ahead, while it would have been easy to just throw down the Torkoal and say, alright, let's hit the eruption this time. Then there wouldn't have been a Trick Room in this following turn. The Trick Room obviously would have expired, and then the Torkoal would have been in danger. So if one of those double protects or double max guards had come through, it could have taken a really nasty turn, and it looked like Ben may have been playing it a little bit safe. But I love that play, understanding in detail that you have to have your Trick Room up, you have to be able to play through that for the duration of the game.
I mean, you can't be so committed to a Trick Room and then let it expire. But we're going to see that Landorus is going to be switching out into the Moltres, and Iron Defense on the Registeel, looking to try and set up, being able to get some damage at this point. Obviously, the defense boost isn't going to matter, but the damage output with Body Press will. And Dusclops, of course, this is why it hit the field. It wants to be setting up that Trick Room and gets the free opportunity to do so.
That's exactly what it does, and getting the Trick Room up, really important for that late game Torkoal, but a fantastic switch from Leonardo. We can't let that one go unnoticed. Of course, the Expanding Force not being able to do anything to that Moltres, so really limiting the options right now, and Ben's in this sticky situation, probably wanted that Indeedee to get knocked out that turn, or at least do a little bit more, because now you've got two rather limited attackers on the field to try and kind of deal the damage, and that forces Ben, rightfully into the switch.
Yeah, trying to bring this Torkoal out safely to try and be able to apply some pressure and utilize this Trick Room, and the Indeedee, wanting to stay safe, is going to go for the Protect instead of the Follow Me, which does leave this Torkoal vulnerable to getting hit with this Sand Tomb. I mean, not doing too much damage, but it is going to be doing that damage in terms of a residual effect. This Moltres, though, taking advantage of this passive turn here, it is going to just go for a nasty plot.
This Moltres is about to get a little bit scary. Really nice play from Leonardo, taking away kind of the Torkoal's eruption option just by landing that bit of damage already. The Torkoal is Choice Specs, and you don't want to lock into a move that's going to get weaker and weaker every single turn. Leonardo, setting up the nasty plot though, really throws down kind of the gauntlet for Ben and says, alright, I'm giving you one chance to knock out my Moltres. The Torkoal has got to do it this turn. It's not an easy ask knocking out a Moltres either. But if you don't, you're probably going to activate Berserk, and I've already got a nasty plot, and I have a spread move, so I'm then just going to be able to kind of run through and go from there. So really, perfect turn from Leonardo, leaving the Moltres as a win condition here, and Registeel taking away that eruption from Torkoal, really, really important for him. The gauntlet's been thrown though, and it looks like Ben's just going to try and see how much he can do.
Well, nothing's going to be done to the Registeel this time around, as Leonardo knows that Ben's going to go for a big attack and opts to protect, going to actually protect both of his Pokemon. We saw just last time with the Trick Room how he was able to kind of protect, try and wait it out, and is going to this time around as well. And that was the last turn of Sunlight, so all the damage that Torkoal would be able to be outputting with that eruption, with that sun, is just slowly getting dwindled away here. Things are getting a little bit harder for Ben as he's losing kind of time with all of the setup that he wanted. The Torkoal lacking the sun, of course, is not what you want to see, especially if you're going to be using these fire type attacks. And every turn that
that Leonardo's able to play through like this is a turn closer to the end of Trick Room, and when Ben has to look back to that strategy of maybe switching out Torkoal, getting the Dusclops to do some work. The problem with that, though, is the Dusclops is now facing down the Moltres. It was a little bit easier for the Dusclops last time with no Moltres on the field. The Moltres with the Nasty Plot boost, which should be able to cause a whole host of problems. So Ben, has to play this one without the Sun and see just how much damage can be done.
DD trying to help it utilize every little bit of damage there with that helping hand. Going to go for Burning Jealousy, which not too impactful. Bringing both of these Pokemon down to about half, but not able to do too much more as Registeel going for that pressure with that body press, hitting to the Torkoal, unable to clean it up, but of course does bring it down to a point where this Moltres, especially with that +2 boost, can take both of these Pokemon down.
Perfect setup from Leonardo a couple turns ago when he got that Nasty Plot in, just making sure it would be the threat, and Ben didn't even come close to knocking out that Moltres. Of course, that switch in being caught by the Sand Tomb, taking away the Eruption. Now the Sun had gone. Obviously, I think if the Sun was up, we'd have had Moltres activating Berserk. That would have been even worse for him. But now it's just the Dusclops left alone, and the Dusclops here very limited in what it can do damage-wise while facing down the Moltres. I mean, this one doesn't even have the guaranteed 50 damage a turn, and I think as soon as there's an attack landed from Leonardo, we're going to be heading on into game number 2. So, as you saw, Ben opting for the Brick Break on his Dusclops, something, of course, interesting with the prevalence of Grimmsnarl and even the Regieleki that's been setting up some of those screens. A nice little adaptation. I don't think Nightshade would be enough, and Brick Break definitely isn't going to be cutting it here, but he at least gets to run some damage checks. That's not very much.
It's definitely not. At least he knows that going into the next game, just how little this Brick Break is going to be doing to a +2 Registeel. And, at this point, too, also finding out that this Moltres is absolutely terrifying on Fairy Wrath. All it is going to take down this Dusclops, and for Leonardo to take the first game in this set.
Oh, Dusclops, you tried. I was very curious to see how far the bar would move. It moved a little bit further than I was anticipating, to be honest, but that's not the matchup you want the Brick Break in. You want it against the Grimmsnarl and the screens, of course. So, really well played early game, I think, by Ben. Kind of followed that plan really, really well. Managed to set up the Trick Room, took that trade. Targeting the Spectre down early was really, really nice as well. But then that mid and late game was just perfected by Leonardo. Bounced back from losing that Spectre, bored in the Landorus, Dynamaxed at the right time so he could take an attack as well, and then started firing back and applying pressure. The Registeel was never threatened either. Leonardo played it very, very safely, called a couple of really nice switches, and even after an early turn where he started losing Pokemon before Ben, just knew that he had enough in the tank with something like that Landorus.
Of course, and it's funny to say in a match against Torkoal that Registeel never felt threatened, but it never really was. Being able to do the protects at the right time, and even that last turn of Trick Room the first time around, being able to go for that double protect. Ben made the switch knowing that a double protect would put Leonardo in a position that would be ahead. So even failing the double protects, it was a play that ended up playing off. But it's time to head into the second match to see what adaptations are being made, to see if Leonardo can really play through Trick Room like he did this time around.
Similar lead coming out, that Spectre there once again. May be able to weave in something a little bit different when it comes down to trying to slow these two down. But the same lead from Ben. Was very happy with that strategy in game number 1. Maybe just looking to capitalize on it a little bit more, to try and deal with that. So I liked how Leonardo played this turn with, of course, the spread moves. I think the Spectre did the right thing. You have to respect the Hatterene's ability, so you can't just throw whatever you want at it. And just reducing its special attack, really, really important as well. So really kind of smart.
It's two Pokemon that have spread moves, and Leonardo was put in such a fantastic spot the first time around. But this Indeedee going to go for the follow me. We talked about how knew that there was that taunt and potential, but Leonardo not even opting to go for it, instead just going to go for a Snarl. Yet again, the special attack drops just proving to be way too useful, and Moltres just picking up that damage yet again. Fiery Wrath, but no critical hit on the Hatterene this time around. That was something that was definitely impactful last time, and not getting it this time does mean that if Ben opts to be Dynamaxing the Hatterene this time around, it's in definitely a much more healthy position.
Oh, it's looking way, way better now. It's still above half of its health. I really like that. That's something that he's kind of taken into consideration, knowing that maybe that was the difference maker in the previous game, just being a little bit too low on the Hatterene and being able to play around that really, really wise. The Ndidi, of course, very, very low on health now, but the Follow Me there just kind of being completely ignored by Leonardo, and I think after looking at turn 1, you have to understand that, hey, maybe that's not going to be so impactful at all. You know, is it going to be able to save the Hatterene from something? Maybe if Leonardo mixes it up, but in general, probably not. Of course, the Hatterene's pretty safe anyway because of Magic Bounce, so it's certainly an interesting one from Ben.
Speaking of interesting, Ndidi and Moltres just opting to go for the Protects, and Hatterene, not wanting to commit to that Dynamax at all, is just going to fire off a -1 Dazzling Gleam, and the Spectre, it was taken out last time around, but this time gets to stick around on the field to just keep going for their Snarls, keep chipping down this Hatterene, and keep bringing down its special attack.
This Hatterene is certainly struggling now. The -2 to special attack is going to limit the options significantly, and it looks like there's going to be a change. I was about to dive into it before the menu came up, I promise. There's obviously a better Dynamax candidate on the team for Ben in this one, so mixing it up very, very nicely here. And instead of bringing the 2 setters, maybe being a little bit more defensive with the Hatterene because you want to be able to reset the Trick Room later on, the Glastrier is coming to play as well. So that's come in. That's much more likely, at full health in particular, to be getting Dynamaxed as well.
Indeed, just making sure the Glastrier can try and stay safe, but not really doing too much in face of these spread moves. Did go for Follow Me, but it is also going to be going down to that Fiery Wrath and Snarl from Spectre, but this time around is only just going to be doing some chip as opposed to making an impact on how much damage this Glastrier is going to be able to output.
Another switch, though, from Ben, and this happened in game number 1 with the Torkoal. Another switch where he just gets caught on the way in, and things become really problematic for him by taking that much damage. I think Glastrier is in a way better position than Hatterene to be potentially Dynamaxing, but it's already taken half of its health, so it's a lot more manageable just by switching in onto a spread move like that and just getting caught a little bit short. So Ben really, really needs to capitalize on this Trick Room. Got to make sure, I think, that Moltres is gone. If that Moltres is still in play when that Hatterene comes back in to try and set up the Trick Room, it's going to be such an easy knockout to take, and Ben is going to have to look very carefully at how he's trying to deal with this team. Of course, does still have Trick Room, does now have the Sun, putting himself in a solid position, and the Choice Specs to make sure the damage is always going to be nice and high as well. So really got to go for it if you're Ben on these last couple of turns of Trick Room, because I'm just not certain you're going to be able to set it up again.
Of course, but a Glastrier and a Torkoal on the field are definitely ways to be applying pressure, and I mean, the sheer amount that Eruption can do in Sun, as well as combined with the specs, is absolutely amazing. So Leonardo definitely put in a bit of a weird position here, has to try and protect his Pokemon, and of course, that Protect is going to be coming out onto the Moltres. Spectre not able to, so it is going to be taking the full wrath of this hit and is going to be taken down.
Spectre fell a little bit later than we saw in the previous game, but in a position that, hey, you know, it's gone down, but it's kind of done its work. It limited that opening pair so much with the Snarls. I think this is a fine time for the Spectre to go down and honestly give something new to Leonardo's kind of board. Is going to be able to mix it up a little bit, change it around, and try get a little bit more from the board position. Has to respect the Glastrier. Maybe that's going to influence his decision a little bit and be able to go from there. But this is a very offensive pairing in Trick Room from Ben. And now Leonardo has to find a way to get through these last couple of turns of Trick Room and make sure he's in a position to stop it going up again, because this is how you have to play against those Trick Room teams. They are going to be able to put on so much pressure. You're not going to be able to really mess up something like the Torkoal, something like the Glastrier at this time. So you just have to be smart about it. You know, give things up if you have to, or weave in Protects. This Registeel is probably going to have a bad time against the full health Torkoal with Choice Specs and Eruption.
We did get to see a little bit of the menu, though this is the last turn of Trick Room here, so has to try and make something happen. Of course, the Moltres did opt to Protect last turn, so it's going to be either vulnerable or go for the double, and we do know the Registeel has access to the Protect. So it should be interesting. What I really like from Ben here is last game we saw how soon that he Dynamaxed going for that Hatterene, but this time around is saving it, knowing that it wasn't necessarily the best candidate, and still has that pressure to offer, which is definitely a lot nicer this go around.
Really good to hold that and make sure he's in the right position to do it. Moltres going for it though, getting
protect.
It. Oh, this could be a nasty turn.
Eruption unable to have anything going for it this time around. The protect from Registeel, we all saw that coming from a mile away, but Leonardo unable to hit either of those double protects in the first game. And it didn't really come down to it in the first game. Gets it when he needs it into the second game. And Ben's definitely put in a tricky situation now that Eruption wasn't able to make anything happen and Trick Room is done.
Well, he's locked into Eruption unless he does exactly what we see there, where Dynamax that Torkoal so you can at least start to mix things up and your move isn't dependent on your health as well, because this Torkoal is going to be taking at least one hit before it gets given the opportunity to fight back. The Glastrier looking a little bit low as well. Could just get caught out by something like the Registeel. But most importantly for Leonardo is there's no Trick Room setter on the board right now for Ben. And not having access to that means he's in the kind of the driving seat, really, where he can say, well, you can't set it up. I get to move first. I get to decide where things get attacked. And you just have to respond to that as best you can.
Well, of course. And Registeel switching out, but Leonardo still going to be making a big play here as he is going to Dynamax as well. Of course, we got a little sneak peek at Ben, but Leonardo going to go for that Dynamax Moltres to start putting a pressure now that Trick Room is all done. I mean, Moltres is such a strong Pokemon, and being able to actually utilize its speed definitely give it some pressure, but Ben, of course, not one to be at stage, going to be bringing out that Dynamax Torkoal.
Both trainers holding on to the Dynamax until a lot later in the game. But as you mentioned, Trick Room's over now, so this Torkoal will be moving last, even though it's Dynamax and is kind of the big threat. It's going to struggle, I think, to really get a foothold in this turn at least, until maybe the Hatterene can try and weave one in. And Moltres is just going to start applying as much pressure as possible. These Max Darknesses are going to start to add up a little bit, and are, of course, going to hurt with those special defense drops, making things a little bit easier to knock out.
Yeah. Last year, looking just pick up some damage, of course, not appreciating the attack drop from the Landorus, and Return is actually going to be giving it a boost over to this Moltres, activating the weakness policy. It does get a couple opportunities, but only hitting 2 off of the Icicle Spear. So that's definitely going to be a very scary bird, but at least this Torkoal does get to follow up. This sun-boosted Max Flare does get to take out the Landorus, which is one of the things really threatening the Torkoal, so that is at least a nice KO for Ben here.
That's probably the shortest we've ever seen a Landorus play in the most recent games we've been seeing in this series. It's just, you know, Landorus comes in, Landorus gets knocked out. I mean, that's what the Torkoal needed to do. Needed to at least get the Pokemon count in Ben's favor. But the Moltres is now so terrifying. The Moltres has its pick of the targets. It's the faster Pokemon on the field. Is able to do insane amounts of damage, especially after that special defense drop from the previous Max Darkness. Just doesn't look threatened at all. And probably Leonardo, realizing that was the best candidate for Dynamax, knowing how well he'd be able to capitalize off it, just really moving into a great position.
Yeah, that definitely hurts. That Icicle Spear didn't really get to be doing too much into the Moltres, and then giving it its boost definitely hurts. Ben, though, looking to be protecting that Torkoal, viewing it as a way to be really cleaning up this match and wanting to save it for the end game. Only is going to use the 1 turn of Max before swapping it out to the Hatterene. Registeel is just going to protect. I mean, it's in front of a Torkoal. We've seen that every time. Moltres with that Max Darkness, targeting into the Glacier instead. So Glacier is going to be taken out.
Kind of perfect predictions again from Leonardo. This Glastrier getting felled as soon as it hit as soon as there was an opportunity to do so, where you didn't really need to do anything else. And the Hatterene trying to weave the way in, you know, did get in safely, but I just don't think there's much opportunity for Leonardo to leave it alone so that the Trick Room goes back up. Of course, the Torkoal lost access to the Dynamax, was not able to use that for the full 3 turns, and while it was getting knockouts, even after that special defense dropped in the first Max Darkness, had to respect that. Maybe a Max Guard there could have slowed things down, bought a little more time, but Ben deciding that the Torkolt had to be safe. It was sort of the game plan in both games.